This is Urso, and Urso has spent 3 weeks reading about which training technique builds the most muscle. He has not trained in 3 weeks. The question feels like it should have an answer: rest pause, drop sets, cluster sets, low volume, high volume. Somebody must have measured which one wins. Somebody did. That is the whole video, and the answer is stranger than a winner. Here is the wall. Every one of these is a real method with a real following, and every one of them is sold to you the same way. This is the thing you are missing.
I am the secret technique. There is a secret, and I'm it.
And before we compare them, we should be sure we mean the same thing by each one, because half the arguments about this are two people using a word differently. Start with the baseline, the thing everything else is measured against. A traditional set, you pick a weight, you do your reps until they get hard, you put it down, and you rest 2 or 3 minutes before the next one. That is it. That is the control group. A drop set starts the same way. You take the set until you cannot do another clean rep. Then, without resting, you immediately strip weight off. Say you were curling 20 kilos, you drop to 15 and keep going until that fails too. Often you drop again, to 10. The point is that failure at 20 kilos is not failure at 15. Your muscle is tired, not empty, and lowering the weight lets you keep asking it for reps when it can no longer produce the original force. 1 long set instead of 3 short ones. Rest pause is the same instinct with a different currency. Instead of buying more reps by removing weight, you buy them with time. Take the set to failure, rack it, breathe for 15 or 20 seconds, not 2 minutes, 15 seconds. Then pick the same weight back up and grind out whatever you can get, usually 3 or 4, then do it again. 15 seconds is enough to recover a surprising amount, and nowhere near enough to feel recovered. That is the whole design. A cluster set breaks the setup from the inside, and it is the one people most often get wrong. You do not take it to failure at all. You plan the rests, 3 reps, rack it, 20 seconds, 3 more reps, 20 seconds, 3 more. 9 reps, same weight, and every one of them moved fast, because you never let yourself get slow and sloppy. The goal is quality of repetition, not more suffering.
Which is why comparing it on hypertrophy was always a bit unfair to it.
Then tempo work, where you slow the lowering phase deliberately, 4 seconds down instead of 1, so the muscle spends longer under load with the same weight on the bar. And finally, the volume argument, which is not a technique at all but a dosage. Low volume says fewer sets, each one taken very close to failure. High volume says more sets, each one stopping further away. Same weekly work, split differently.
Each of us has a book. Some of us have 2.
Now look at what you just heard. Drop sets buy extra reps with weight. Rest pause buys them with time. Clusters spend rest to protect speed. Tempo stretches the same rep. Volume just moves the total around. They are all answers to the same question: how do I do more hard work in less time, or how do I make less work feel like more? Hold on to that, because it comes back at the end and it is the honest part of the story. And notice something about the wall itself. Every method here needs a name to be sold, and a name needs to promise something the previous name did not. That pressure is on the marketing, not on the muscle. To compare them, you have to make the comparison fair, and this is where the whole field lives or dies. 2 words: volume matched.
Was the volume matched?
If one group does more total hard sets than the other, of course it grows more. That is not the technique winning. That is more work winning, wearing the technique shirt.
Was the effort matched?
Same problem. Push one group closer to failure and it grows more, whatever you call the method. So the good studies pin both down, same sets, same closeness to failure, and only then change the technique. And this is why so much of what you have read about training is not wrong so much as unmatched. Somebody tried a method, did more work than usual because the method was new and they were excited, grew, and credited the method. That is not lying. That is what an uncontrolled comparison looks like from the inside, and it is the single most common way people get confidently wrong about their own training.
I have asked this question 11,000 times. It is never popular.
So, a systematic review with meta-analysis, advanced techniques against plain traditional sets, and recreationally trained adults, volume and effort held equal. The pooled effect on muscle growth was 0.046, small and not statistically significant. In plain language, a tie.
A tie is basically a swing.
It is not. Rest pause does come out slightly ahead of the other advanced methods, and that advantage is real and modest, not a different category of result. Head-to-head against traditional sets, rest pause and drop sets produced similar strength and similar growth. Cluster sets with volume and effort matched similar growth again. The reason to use clusters is to manage fatigue and keep your reps fast, which is a good reason and is not the reason on the label. If the technique is not the lever, what is? This dial, how close you get to failure? Here the evidence is more interesting than a yes or no. Training all the way to failure beats stopping short, but only trivially. And the 2024 meta-regressions found something better than a threshold, a continuous dose response with reps in reserve. Meaning there is no magic line you cross. The closer you get, the more you grow, and it keeps sloping until you are basically there. So you do not have to fail, you have to get close. And close is closer than most people train. The honest version of this sentence is that the average set stops while there are still 4 or 5 reps sitting in the tank.
Which is a volume problem wearing a technique costume.
And it explains why the techniques feel like they work, which they do. Every one of them drags you closer to failure by force. Drop sets remove the option of stopping. Rest pause gives you 15 seconds and takes the excuse away. They are not delivering a special stimulus. They are delivering the ordinary stimulus that you were going to skip, and that is genuinely valuable. It is just not what the name claims. Then the second lever, how many hard sets per week. More does give more growth, and the curve flattens. Every extra set buys less than the one before it, and eventually it buys fatigue. And frequency, the thing gym arguments are made of, is not an independent lever once volume is matched. The same weekly total split across 2 days or 4 days lands in the same place. Which quietly ends about half of the arguments people have about training splits. Now, the part I would be unfair to skip, because so far this sounds like the techniques are useless. They are not. They are just useful for a different thing than the one on the tin. Rest pause and drop sets get you the same stimulus in less time. That is not a consolation prize. If you have 40 minutes and not 70, that is the actual problem you have, and this is the actual solution to it.
Finally, somebody says my name.
The technique is a time efficiency tool that got marketed as a growth tool. Both of those sentences are about the same technique. Only one of them is on the poster.
Nobody sells a course called The Same Result on a Tuesday in Less Time!
Nobody does, and they should. Because the thing that actually stops people is not that they picked the wrong method. It is that the session was 90 minutes long and Tuesday was busy, so Tuesday did not happen, and then neither did Thursday. A method that makes the session fit is a method that makes the session happen. That is a bigger effect than 0.046, and it never shows up in the meta-analysis, because the meta-analysis only measures people who turned up. 2 limits, and they matter. Almost all of this is in recreationally trained adults, not beginners who grow from nearly anything, and not advanced athletes who may genuinely need the extra squeeze. And most of these studies run 6 to 12 weeks. That is long enough to measure a difference in growth, and short enough that a small difference could still add up over years. Nobody has run the 10-year version, and nobody will. So what do you do on Monday? Not switch programs. Pick the sets you can actually recover from, take them close enough that the last 2 reps are ugly, and do that for months. If a technique helps you fit those sets into the time you have, use it. That is a real reason. The name on it is not.
So I was never the secret.
You were a stopwatch. It is a good job. And none of this is a training program. It is a comparison of variables. If something hurts, that is a different conversation, and it is with a professional, not with a video. And if you want the next one, hit like, subscribe, and tell me which gym argument Urso should settle next. Step into the light.